Welcome back to Sleepy Science History. Tell me, have you ever wondered why your eyelids grow heavy at night even when your mind still wants to wander? Or why a morning sunbeam slipping through the curtains feels like a gentle alarm clock, nudging you awake before your phone even buzzes? What secret rhythm is beating inside you, guiding your hunger, your moods, and even your thoughts, as if you are a dancer moving to music you cannot hear? They call it the circadian rhythm, but I wonder, doesn't that sound too clinical for something so ancient, so poetic? Imagine instead a hidden clock, tucked not into your pocket or on your wrist, but deep inside your cells. It ticks softly, without hands, without numbers, yet it rules your life more strictly than any bell tower or smartphone timer ever could. Do you feel its quiet pull? Perhaps you've felt it in the grogginess of a late-night scroll or in the strange alertness after a sunrise walk. I ask myself often, what does it mean that we are creatures of time, not just by calendars and schedules, but by invisible waves that rise and fall within our bodies? Are we free, or are we slaves to this secret clock? And you, yes, you listening, have you noticed how your mood changes with the light, or how hunger arrives almost on schedule, like a loyal visitor who never misses their appointment? When I think of it, the body's hidden clock feels like an orchestra conductor. Each instrument is a different organ. The stomach, the heart, the brain, the skin. Alone, they would play in chaos. But with the gentle wave of an invisible baton, they stay in harmony. A surge of energy here, a dip of sleepiness there. Can you picture it? A midnight lullaby for your metabolism, a morning fanfare for your heartbeat, a quiet afternoon hum for your mind. Does it surprise you that your body is more musical than mechanical? And then comes another question: how did we learn to obey this rhythm? Did it evolve from the rising and setting of the sun, the endless turning of the earth? Perhaps long ago, when humans first gazed up at the stars, their bodies were already tuned like clocks, winding themselves with moonlight and shadow. What do you think it felt like back then, before electric bulbs drowned the night in brightness? Did people sleep deeper, dream longer, live more in step with the planets turning? I confess, sometimes I envy that older rhythm. Today we push against it, don't we? Midnight emails, neon lights, 24-hour stores. We stretch the night thin and drink coffee to borrow hours from tomorrow. But can you ever truly cheat the clock inside you? Have you noticed how even after a long night awake, your body insists on waking with the morning light? As if some stubborn part of you refuses to forget the old ways. Here's a thought experiment for you. Imagine you were placed in a cave with no sun, no clocks, no hint of outside time. Would your inner clock still tick? Scientists have tested this. Volunteers lived underground, cut off from daylight. Strangely, their bodies still followed a near 24-hour rhythm. Sleeping, waking, eating on schedule. But little by little, their days stretched longer, drifting beyond the tidy boxes of human calendars. Isn't that eerie? As if, left alone, the body would wander into its own measure of time, untethered from the earth. I find myself asking, what is time, then? Not the one written on watches, but the one pulsing in veins and nerves. Could it be that each of us carries a pocket of eternity, a private sundial that whispers when to rise, when to rest, when to dream? Let's get personal for a moment. Have you ever traveled across the world and felt jet lag gnaw at your bones? That's your inner clock protesting, confused by the sudden shift of light and dark. Your body wants night while the city outside bursts with noon. Isn't it curious how fragile and stubborn this clock can be? You can buy a ticket to skip time zones, but your body refuses to adjust so easily. It clings to its rhythm like a child clutching a favorite toy. Think about how many ways this rhythm shapes your life. Your alertness peaks in late morning, dips in early afternoon, and rises again in the evening. Your hormones, your digestion, even the strength of your muscles. Each one swells and fades with the hidden tides of your circadian cycle. Can you feel those tides in yourself? Or are they too subtle, too quiet, like the hush of waves against a distant shore? Sometimes, when I lie awake at night, I ask myself, what if we could turn off this clock? Would life be freer, or would it unravel into chaos? Without rhythm, music becomes noise. Without time, perhaps living would lose its gentle shape. Isn't it possible that this inner clock, though it binds us, is also a gift? A compass pointing us toward balance, reminding us when to rest, when to awaken, when to begin again. I wonder if you've noticed this. When you follow your natural rhythm, going to bed when you feel sleepy, waking with the dawn, life feels smoother, almost effortless. But when you fight it, when you push against the tide, fatigue and fog creep in. Why is it so hard for us, in modern life, to surrender to the rhythm we already carry inside? Could it be that we fear missing something, even while our bodies beg us to pause? There's something almost mystical about it, don't you think? That a bundle of neurons in your brain, called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, acts like a master clock, syncing your whole body. And yet, even without the jargon, it's enough to know that your body listens to light, drinks in its cues, and answers with sleep and wake. Have you felt that instant lift when stepping into morning sunlight? That's your inner gears turning, your clock resetting itself, whispering, "Begin again." If I may ask, when was the last time you watched a sunrise? Not just glanced at it, but truly sat with it, letting the light pour over you like warm water? Did you notice how your breath slowed, how your thoughts softened? That, too, is the clock at work, syncing you to the day, like a gentle handshake between body and sky. Sometimes, I think of this hidden rhythm as a quiet guardian. It doesn't scold or shout, but it reminds you with gentle nudges. Hunger here, sleepiness there, focus now, let go later. Do you feel it, this guardian inside you, always watching, always guiding? And then another question comes. If our bodies are so bound to time, what does that mean for free will? Do we truly choose our moments of energy and rest? Or are we passengers in a vessel guided by unseen tides? I don't have the answer, and maybe that's part of the wonder. Maybe the mystery is the point, that we live not against time, but within it, like fish within a current. Picture this. Billions of people around the world, each with a tiny clock inside, all ticking slightly differently, yet together forming the great symphony of human life. A mother rocking her baby at midnight, a baker rising at dawn, a student yawning through the afternoon. All of us, dancing to rhythms written not in ink but in cells. Doesn't that image comfort you, knowing you are never out of step, only part of a greater pulse? So I invite you, as we drift toward the close of this first chapter, to listen tonight for the hidden clock within you. Notice when your breath deepens, when your mind clears, when your limbs grow heavy. Ask yourself, not with urgency but with wonder, what song is my body playing, and how can I move with it instead of against it? Because perhaps the real secret is not that time controls us, but that it partners with us, offering balance in exchange for attention. And when you listen, truly listen, you may find that the quiet ticking inside you is not a prison, but a lullaby. And isn't that a gentle thought to carry with you now, as the night deepens and the body remembers its ancient rhythm? Have you ever wondered why darkness feels different at midnight than it does at dawn? The same shadows stretch across the room, yet one feels heavy and secretive while the other feels soft and full of promise. What changes in those hours when the world tilts from night into morning? Could it be that your body, without your permission, is carrying you through invisible phases, like the moon moving quietly across the sky? I find myself curious. Why does your mind sharpen at some hours and wander at others? You might sit down to read in the late evening, yet your eyes drift, your focus scatters, your thoughts slip away like fish in a stream. But then, at a different hour, words seem to leap into place, problems solve themselves, and the stream runs clear. Isn't it strange how ability depends not just on willpower, but on timing? The clock inside you doesn't simply decide when you sleep. It paints the hours with different colors, shaping how you feel, think, and act. Imagine each hour as a room in a house you walk through every day. One room glows with bright energy, another hums with quiet reflection, another softens everything into drowsy warmth. Have you noticed which rooms feel most like home to you? Take, for example, the mysterious drop of energy that arrives in the afternoon. Have you felt it? The sudden heaviness in your eyelids, the faint longing for a nap, even when the day is still unfinished. What is that, if not your hidden clock dimming the lights, reminding you of the ebb and flow of energy. Some cultures, wiser than we often admit, embrace this lull. They close shops, darken windows, and rest during siesta. Isn't it curious that while some societies fight against this rhythm with coffee and bright screens, others lean into it, trusting the body's gentle advice? Think about hunger for a moment. Why do meals taste better at certain times? Why does breakfast feel so different from dinner, even if you eat the same food? Could it be that your body is not simply asking for fuel, but timing its requests with precision? Hormones rise and fall like tides, preparing your stomach, priming your blood sugar, readying you to digest. Isn't it astonishing that your body anticipates the future, signaling hunger even before food is in sight, as though it knows what's coming? But then another question arises: what happens when we ignore these signals? Perhaps you've eaten too late at night, and afterward your sleep was restless. Or maybe you've skipped a meal, only to feel shaky and irritable, even as you told yourself you weren't hungry. What if the discomfort is not failure, but the sound of a clock misaligned, like gears grinding because they are out of sync? The more I think about it, the more I see our lives as pendulums, swinging between wake and rest, between hunger and fullness, between focus and fatigue. Have you noticed how the pendulum always returns? You may stay awake all night, but sleep will reclaim you with double force. You may delay eating, but eventually the hunger grows louder. Doesn't it feel as though your body always insists on balance, even when your choices resist it? Consider also the curious link between mood and time. Why is it that worries feel sharper at night, while solutions often come more easily in the morning light? Could it be that the night is when your mind sifts through shadows, while the morning is when it lays them bare in clarity? Neuroscientists speak of cycles of hormones, but perhaps on a simpler level you've felt it yourself, the relief of waking after a night of tangled thoughts, finding them less frightening in daylight. What do you think? Does the clock heal us slowly by offering different lenses for different hours? And then I wonder, what does it mean that our clocks are not all the same? You may rise easily at dawn, while another person drags themselves out of bed at noon. We call them morning larks and night owls. But why such difference? Could it be that evolution once favored variety? Some guarding the night fire, others ready to wake with the sunrise? Isn't it fascinating that our very sleep patterns might echo ancient survival strategies, carried into the modern world where fires are gone, yet alarms still ring? Have you noticed, too, how difficult it is to fight your natural type? A night owl may promise themselves an early bedtime, but the mind awakens just when the body should rest. A lark may try to stay awake for midnight conversations, but sleep tugs at them with undeniable force. Why is it so hard to rewrite the script written in our biology? Perhaps because the clock is not merely habit but wiring, rooted deep in the genes of our cells. Doesn't it make you wonder how much of your life is chosen, and how much is inherited timing? There is another question that lingers: what happens when the environment pulls against the clock? Think of the nurse working night shifts, the student studying under fluorescent lights long past midnight, the traveler adjusting to new time zones. Their clocks protest, their sleep fragments, their bodies rebel in small ways. Some call it social jet lag, living out of sync not with the sun but with society. Can you feel the strain of that phrase, as though the very soul is pulled out of rhythm? And yet, despite all our interference, the body tries to adapt. Slowly, the hidden clock shifts, like a stubborn traveler adjusting to foreign soil. But adaptation has limits. Studies whisper of health risks when the rhythm is broken too often: trouble with metabolism, weakened immunity, even changes in mood and memory. Doesn't it strike you as humbling that no matter how powerful our technology, we cannot truly silence the ancient beat of the body's time? Imagine for a moment what it would be like if we could. A pill to erase sleepiness, a switch to turn off hunger, a button to summon energy on command. Would life be easier or emptier? Would the hours blur into one endless stretch, stripped of their flavors and textures? Could it be that the rhythm itself, the rise and fall, the waxing and waning, is what gives life its meaning? Like music, it is not the constant note but the change, the pause, the return, that makes the song beautiful. I often think of this hidden clock as a kind of tidal. Within it, creatures emerge and retreat with predictable timing, yet to the eye it looks like random movement. Only when you sit long enough watching patiently do you see the pattern. Have you ever felt that in yourself? At first, your days may seem chaotic, but when you look closely, you notice the ebb and flow. Alertness in the morning, fatigue at night, the hunger rising at noon. Could it be that you are more predictable than you realize, shaped by currents you rarely stop to notice? And here's a more playful question. If you could trade clocks with someone else, would you? Imagine waking with ease before dawn, or finding energy at midnight without effort. Would you feel like a new person, or would you miss the quirks of your own rhythm? Isn't it possible that your clock is part of who you are, as much as your memories or your voice? I sometimes picture humanity as a vast meadow of flowers, each blooming at different times. Some unfold with the morning sun, others release their fragrance in the cool of night. Together, they keep the meadow alive around the clock. Do you see yourself as one of those flowers, opening and closing with quiet precision? Doesn't that image make the clock inside you feel less like a burden and more like a gentle choreography with nature? And so the question remains, are we ruled by time, or are we participants in its dance? Perhaps it is both. The clock inside us sets the rhythm, but we choose the steps we take upon it. You might resist and stumble, or you might lean into the beat and move with grace. Isn't that the subtle art of living, learning when to rest, when to rise, when to listen, when to act? The more I reflect, the more I sense that the hidden clock is not an enemy, but a companion. It doesn't demand obedience. It offers guidance. It nudges, it whispers, it invites you to flow rather than force. What would happen, I wonder, if you trusted it more? If you let yourself sleep when you are tired, eat when you are hungry, pause when your energy dips? Would life feel gentler, like walking with the current instead of against it? Perhaps the real secret lies in attention. To notice your own rhythm, to respect its quiet signals, to ask the small questions. Why am I tired now? Why am I alert then? Why does the night feel so different from the morning? By asking, you begin to listen. And by listening, you begin to live not as a prisoner of the clock, but as a partner in its endless song. Isn't that worth pondering, here in the hush of another turning day? Have you ever noticed how a single beam of morning light can feel like a command? You may wake groggy, heavy with sleep, but then sunlight slips across your face, and suddenly your body stirs as if answering a summons. What is it about light that holds such power over us? Why does a simple change in brightness reset the course of our entire day? I often wonder if the hidden clock inside us is the conductor, is light the metronome? Each day, the rising and setting of the sun taps out a rhythm, steady and ancient. Without it, would the body lose its place in the song? Imagine yourself adrift in endless darkness. No dawn, no dusk. Would your inner rhythm continue, or would it falter? Scientists tell us it would drift, slowly, like a boat unmoored from its anchor. Doesn't that image make you realize how tethered we are to the turning of the earth? But light is more than an anchor, it is a sculptor. It carves wakefulness into the morning and drapes sleepiness over the night. Have you felt how blue light from your phone tricks your brain, persuading it that midnight is still noon? Isn't it unsettling that such a small glow can override a billion years of evolution? And yet, doesn't it also show how delicate and responsive we are, like instruments tuned to even the faintest notes of the environment? Think of dawn for a moment. Not the quick rush of alarms and coffee, but the quiet unfolding of the world before it wakes. Birds call, air shifts, shadows retreat. Isn't it curious that your body, too, rises to meet this slow transformation? Cortisol surges gently, preparing you for action. Heartbeat quickens just enough to lift you from dreams. Does it not feel like the body is greeting the day even before your mind remembers it exists? And then comes the question, why does darkness hold such sway in return? You close your eyes at night, and melatonin seeps like ink into your bloodstream, painting you with drowsiness. Even if you resist, even if you flood your room with lamplight, the darkness outside whispers to your body that it is time. Doesn't that make you feel like a creature not just of flesh, but of shadow and sun combined? Yet I find myself asking what happens when we break this bond. Night shifts, late-night screens, neon cities blazing through midnight. Our inner clocks bend under pressure. Sleep fragments, moods wobble, hunger loses its schedule. Can you recall a night when you stayed awake far too late, and the next day felt blurry, as though you were walking half a step behind yourself? Isn't that the echo of a clock thrown off balance? But light does more than guide sleep. It shapes emotion, memory, even imagination. Why is it that winter darkness sometimes drapes people in sadness, while summer light seems to lift spirits without effort? Could it be that the hidden clock is also a painter of mood, coloring your thoughts with daylight's palette? And doesn't that suggest that joy, melancholy, focus, and fatigue are not only matters of the mind, but of time itself? Here's another question. Have you ever experienced the magic of twilight? That in-between light, neither day nor night, when the sky softens into shades of blue and gold. Why does it feel so different, so charged with mystery? Could it be that your clock recognizes this moment as a hinge, a turning point, a breath between chapters? And isn't it soothing to think that your body, like the world, finds meaning in transitions? I sometimes picture the body's cells as tiny clocks themselves, each ticking quietly, waiting for light's signal to reset, like a choir of lanterns, glowing in synchrony with the rising sun. But here's the marvel. Even organs hidden deep in darkness, your liver, your heart, your gut, seem to know the time. How do they listen to a sun they cannot see? Hormones, signals, whispers passed from cell to cell. Isn't it astonishing that your entire body is bound together by the invisible threads of light's influence? But then another thought arises. What of those who live where light is scarce? Far north, where winter days shrink to a sliver, or far south, where summer sun refuses to set? How does their clock endure such extremes? Do they adjust, or do they suffer the dissonance of a rhythm stretched too far? Isn't it humbling to realize that even geography inscribes itself into the body's time, shaping the very cadence of life? And what of artificial light, the fire we have stolen from the stars? We read beneath it, work beneath it, dream beneath it. Yet, does it not blur the line between night and day, tricking the body into confusion? Could it be that progress comes at the cost of rhythm, and that every bulb carries both brilliance and disruption? Do you ever wonder what it would feel like to live just 1 week without electricity? Would your sleep deepen, your mind calm, your days feel more whole? It seems to me that our relationship with light is like a long dance, sometimes graceful, sometimes clumsy. We move with it, then stumble against it, yet always return to its embrace. Do you feel that, too, that pull to rise with the sun and rest with the stars, no matter how modern life insists otherwise? And then the deepest question. If light is the key, does it mean our lives are merely puppets of the sun? Or do we still have choice, weaving flexibility into rhythm, bending without breaking? Perhaps the answer lies in balance, acknowledging the power of light, yet not surrendering entirely. Isn't that the art of harmony, to live both with nature's clock and with the inventions of our own making? Sometimes I imagine time not as a straight line, but as a spiral. Each sunrise circles back, yet carries us forward. Each sunset repeats, yet is never quite the same. Your inner clock, guided by light, traces this spiral, always returning, always moving. Have you felt this spiral in your own days, the sense of repetition yet subtle change? Doesn't it feel like breathing in and out, a rhythm that holds you without you ever noticing? And so, light is not just something you see. It is something you carry, something you answer to, something that shapes the very fabric of your existence. The clock inside you listens to it like a lover listens to a voice, attentive, responsive, unresisting. And perhaps that is the quiet truth of it all, that you are not merely a creature in time, but a creature of light. And isn't that thought, soft and luminous, one worth holding as another day folds into night? Have you ever paused to wonder why dreams arrive only when the world is hushed, when your body surrenders to sleep? Why does the mind wait for the veil of night to lift its hidden theater curtain? Could it be that your inner clock not only tells you when to rest, but also when to wander into those strange landscapes of memory and imagination? Sleep is more than a pause, more than silence. It is a performance directed by time itself. Each night unfolds an axe. Drifting drowsiness, deeper slumber, vivid dreams. Have you felt the way your body sinks into heaviness at first, like a stone settling into a riverbed, only for your mind to later ignite with strange stories that feel more real than waking life? Isn't it curious that the clock inside you decides when each act begins, as if the night were a script written long before you close your eyes? I often ask myself, why do we spend a third of our lives unconscious? What purpose could be so important that evolution demanded such surrender? Imagine the vulnerability of ancient humans lying helpless under starlight. Yet, generation after generation, sleep endured. Doesn't that suggest it was not weakness, but survival that kept this ritual alive? And then there is the rhythm within the rhythm. Every 90 minutes or so, your body cycles through stages: light sleep, deep sleep, rapid eye movement. Have you noticed how waking in the middle of a dream feels so different from waking in heavy, dreamless rest? One feels like being pulled abruptly from a vivid painting, the other like rising from the bottom of the sea. Isn't it remarkable that even within sleep, time continues to shape experience, carving the night into repeating waves? Dreams, too, seem to obey this inner clock. They gather in the later hours, as if the mind saves its most colorful performances for the final act. Have you ever woken near dawn, heart racing, remembering every detail of a dream as if you had lived another life? Could it be that the body waits until the edge of morning to rehearse, to sort, to imagine? And if so, why? Scientists say that during these dream-rich hours, your brain consolidates memories, strengthens learning, untangles emotion. But isn't it more beautiful to think of dreams as the mind's nightly ritual of storytelling, weaving fragments of your day into tapestries no artist could paint? Doesn't it feel as though your inner clock, knowing the time, decides when to open this secret workshop and when to close it again? But then comes another question: what happens when the rhythm breaks? You've likely felt it. A sleepless night where hours crawl, your body restless though your mind pleads for rest. Or a night cut short by alarms, pulling you out of the dream cycle before its natural close. How do you feel the next day? Foggy, irritable, unfocused? Isn't that the consequence of ignoring the schedule written in your very cells? Think of how you sometimes crave naps in the afternoon. Isn't it strange that even in broad daylight, your body calls you back to a miniature version of night? These brief journeys into sleep can refresh, yet they too follow a rhythm. Too long, and you wake disoriented. Too short, and you feel cheated. Doesn't that make you wonder how precise the hidden clock must be, measuring even moments of rest? I like to imagine the inner clock as a watchful caretaker, guarding your mind each night. It ushers you gently into sleep, deepens the silence, lifts you into dreams, then carries you back toward waking. Always repeating, always exact. Does it not feel like a guardian guiding you across a narrow bridge between chaos and renewal? And what of those who fight it? Students staying up through the night, workers bound to late shifts, travelers crossing oceans. Their clocks protest, and dreams scatter. Sleep becomes shallow, healing is delayed, moods tilt. Isn't it sobering to realize how fragile the balance is? How quickly life frays when the clock is ignored. And yet, how forgiving it is, too, how just a few nights of rhythm can restore what was lost. Here's a question to hold. Do you believe dreams are only chemistry, or are they something more? If they are timed by the clock, then does the clock also shape imagination, creativity, vision? Isn't it extraordinary to think that the same rhythm guiding your heartbeat may also decide when your mind paints castles in the air? Sometimes, when I think of sleep, I imagine the earth itself breathing. Day is the inhale, full of movement and light. Night is the exhale, long and deep. And you, your body, your clock, follow the same breath in perfect synchrony with the planet. Have you felt that how your rest is not just personal but planetary? Doesn't it make you wonder if all living things, from birds to trees to humans, are simply sharing one grand cycle of waking and sleeping, rising and falling together? And yet, with all this mystery, how little control we seem to have. You cannot order yourself to sleep, only surrender. You cannot command a dream, only receive it. Isn't it humbling to realize that in these hours, time rules you completely, offering rest only when the rhythm is honored? But perhaps that is the point. Perhaps the surrender is the lesson. That you, so busy measuring hours and racing against clocks, must each night return to the rhythm older than calendars, older than civilization. Isn't it comforting to think that while the world rushes on, your body insists on its timeless cycle, reminding you that you are part of something slower, gentler, eternal? So the question lingers, what would happen if you listened more closely? If you went to bed when drowsiness called instead of when the screen finally dimmed? If you rose with the sun rather than the alarm? Would your dreams grow brighter? Your days more clear? Your life more whole? Isn't it possible that harmony with the hidden clock is less about discipline and more about trust? And as you drift tonight, perhaps you will notice the rhythm within, the slow descent, the hidden tide, the stories waiting to be told. For the clock is already at work, guiding you gently, whether or not you pay attention. And isn't there a kind of peace in that, knowing you are carried through the night by time itself? Have you ever wondered why hunger arrives like clockwork, even when food is plentiful and always within reach? Why does your stomach growl at noon? Or why does sleepiness often follow a heavy meal? Could it be that eating is not just about nourishment but also about timing, a rhythm stitched into your body as firmly as the beat of your heart? Think about how the sun and meals are intertwined. Breakfast waits for dawn, dinner for dusk. Why is it that food feels different depending on when it is eaten? Toast and eggs at midnight taste strange, yet the same meal in the morning feels natural, expected. Isn't it curious that the body seems to assign roles to foods based not only on their flavor but on their place in the day? I often ask myself, does the body keep its own calendar of hunger, preparing for meals before they arrive? Imagine the stomach releasing juices, the pancreas readying insulin, the gut preparing to digest, all before the first bite. Isn't it extraordinary that your inner clock anticipates what is coming, as if it knows the script before the scene begins? And what happens when that script is rewritten? Late-night snacking, skipped breakfasts, rushed lunches under fluorescent lights. Do you feel how your body struggles then? How fatigue or sluggishness creeps in? Isn't that the echo of a clock disrupted, a rhythm ignored? Consider how cultures once honored these rhythms without even knowing the science. Farmers rose with dawn, ate heartily through the morning, rested at midday, and dined simply by evening firelight. Their lives were tethered to sunlight and harvest, meals arranged by the earth's turning. Compare that to today, where food glows from vending machines at every hour, and coffee shops hum at midnight. Do you ever wonder what toll this freedom takes on the ancient rhythm within you? There is also the curious link between metabolism and time. Studies suggest that the body burns calories differently depending on the hour. Morning meals may fuel energy more efficiently, while late-night feasts linger, stored away rather than used. Doesn't it seem almost unfair that the same food can change its effect depending on when it is eaten? Or is it simply another reminder that your body is less a machine and more a tide, rising and falling with invisible currents? And yet, hunger is not purely physical. Have you noticed how mood and appetite are bound together? Stress sharpens cravings, sadness dulls them, joy enhances them. Could it be that the hidden clock shapes not just when you eat, but how you feel about food itself? Isn't it remarkable that a hormone like ghrelin, rising and falling with rhythm, can whisper both hunger and desire, influencing not just the stomach but the mind? I sometimes picture the digestive system as a second clock, its hands turning in sync with the brain's master rhythm. Breakfast is a sunrise bell, lunch a noon chime, dinner a twilight tone. Together, they keep harmony, reminding you that nourishment is not random but cyclical. Do you feel that cadence in your own life, the way meals punctuate your day like commas in a sentence? And then there is fasting, the deliberate pause. Why does the absence of food sometimes bring clarity? Could it be that by skipping the constant supply, you return to an older rhythm, one written into your ancestors who knew feast and famine alike? Isn't it intriguing that hunger, when embraced with balance, seems to awaken something quiet and sharp within you? But the reverse is also true. Too much, too often, at odd hours, and the rhythm falters. Have you ever eaten late into the night and woken heavy, as though your body never truly rested? Could it be that digestion and sleep are rival acts, each demanding the stage, each disrupted when they overlap? Doesn't that suggest that timing is as important as content, that when you eat may matter as much as what you eat? Another question lingers. Why does society encourage us to override the body's rhythm so often? Work schedules that ignore hunger, deadlines that erase lunch, celebrations that stretch deep into the night. Isn't it odd that the modern world, so proud of progress, often wages quiet war against the very clock that sustains us? And yet, doesn't the body always push back, reminding us with fatigue, indigestion, or cravings that cannot be ignored? I like to think of appetite as a conversation between body and time. The body asks for nourishment, and the clock replies with permission or refusal. Sometimes the two agree and you feel energized, content. Other times they argue, and you are left restless or uncomfortable. Can you feel this dialogue in yourself, the way hunger sometimes feels clean and natural, and other times urgent and misplaced? What fascinates me most is how universal this rhythm is. Across cultures, across centuries, people have shared meals at similar times, celebrated harvests in cycles, broken bread in ritual. Food is not just sustenance but ceremony, woven into the fabric of time. Isn't it comforting to think that when you eat dinner with friends, you are echoing countless generations who also gathered at dusk, guided by the same hidden clock? And yet, each body carries its own variation. Some feel hunger early, others late. Some thrive on many small meals, others on fewer, larger ones. Could it be that within the universal rhythm lies personal melody, each clock playing the same tune but in slightly different keys? Doesn't that make the act of eating feel intimate, uniquely yours, even as it connects you to everyone else? Have you ever asked yourself what it would be like to live entirely by your body's signals, free of schedules and obligations? To eat only when hunger whispered, to rest only when drowsiness called? Would life feel more harmonious, or would it dissolve into disorder? Perhaps the truth lies in balance, listening closely yet gently guiding, not ignoring but not surrendering either. Isn't that the quiet art of living with the clock, rather than against it? So perhaps hunger is not simply a call for food but a reminder of time itself. Each growl of the stomach is like a bell, each sip of water like a turning page. Meals divide your day, mark its progress, give shape to its flow. Without them, time might feel endless. With them, it takes on rhythm, punctuation, meaning. And isn't it humbling, in the end, to realize that your body does not simply ask for nourishment, but asks for it in rhythm, in cycles, in harmony with the turning earth? To eat is not just to survive but to keep time. And maybe that is why food tastes sweeter at the right hour, why meals shared at the right moment feel like music instead of noise. Isn't it a wonder that even hunger obeys the hidden clock inside you? And that in listening to it, you are not just feeding your body, you are keeping faith with the oldest rhythm of all. Have you ever asked yourself why some moments feel sharper, clearer, as if your mind has slipped into perfect focus, while at other times the simplest thought feels heavy and slow? Why do ideas arrive like lightning in 1 hour, yet scatter like mist in another? Could it be that even attention and memory are not entirely your own, but gently steered by the invisible hand of your inner clock? Imagine your brain as a great library. Shelves stretch endlessly, filled with books of memory and imagination. Yet the librarian who guides you through this library does not work at the same pace all day. In the morning, she may walk briskly, pulling volumes with ease. By afternoon, she slows, and by night she sometimes closes the doors altogether. Have you noticed this librarian in yourself, the rhythm of clarity rising and falling, not with willpower but with time? I find myself wondering, why does the mind demand such cycles? Why can't it be sharp at every moment, like a lamp that never dims? Perhaps the answer lies in balance. Just as muscles need rest to grow stronger, maybe thought itself requires rhythm, periods of brightness and periods of shadow. Isn't it strange to think that forgetting, daydreaming, And even distraction may serve a purpose, as much a part of cognition as focus and recall. And then there is creativity, that elusive spark. Have you felt it arrive unbidden, often at odd hours? Some people swear that their brightest ideas come late at night, while others find them in the cool quiet of dawn. Could it be that creativity, too, is bound to the inner clock, that certain phases of the day open hidden doors in the mind while others gently close them? Doesn't it almost feel as though imagination is a tide, one you cannot command but only ride when it rises? Consider also how emotion drifts through the day. Why do worries weigh heavier at night, while hope feels easier in the morning? Isn't it remarkable that your thoughts themselves are colored by time, as if the hours of the day were lenses tinting your view of the world? Could it be that the brain, in its rhythm, protects you by offering clarity in the light and gentler surrender in the dark? There is a mystery, too, in memory. Why is it that sleep strengthens what you learn, as if the night were a craftsman weaving new threads into the fabric of your mind? Scientists tell us that during certain phases of rest, the brain replays patterns of activity, rehearsing knowledge like a musician repeating notes. Isn't it marvelous that your inner clock decides when this rehearsal takes place, guarding your memories not while you are awake, but while you are surrendered to dreams? And what happens when this rhythm is broken? You've likely felt it. Nights of too little sleep when your memory falters the next day, or days when fatigue dulls your ability to focus. Have you noticed how thoughts slip through your fingers then? How decisions feel heavier, how irritability rises? Isn't that the cost of pushing against the clock, of asking the mind to perform outside of its rhythm? I sometimes picture thought as a garden. There are hours when the soil is rich, the air just right, and ideas bloom with little effort. Then there are hours when the ground hardens, when planting seeds feels useless. Could it be that the clock inside you governs these seasons of the mind, deciding when growth is easy and when rest is necessary? And doesn't that suggest that wisdom lies not in forcing thought, but in noticing when the garden is ready? But here's another question. If attention, memory, and creativity are bound to rhythm, what does that mean for freedom? Are we less in control than we imagine? Our brightest moments dictated not by will but by time? Or is there power in knowing the pattern, choosing to work with it rather than against it? Think of how musicians follow tempo. They do not control the beat, but by respecting it, they create music. Could it be the same with the mind, that harmony comes not from defiance, but from listening to the clock within? And what of moods that stretch beyond hours into seasons? Some people feel their thoughts dim in winter, brightening again with spring. Could it be that the brain, like the body, listens to longer cycles of light and dark, shaping not just daily focus but whole landscapes of mood and imagination? Doesn't that hint that time's influence is layered, weaving through us on scales both small and vast? Think also of children and the elderly. A child's energy surges in bursts, their focus fleeting yet brilliant. The elderly often wake early, their rhythms gentler, slower. Could it be that the clock shifts not only through the day but through the course of a lifetime? Isn't it humbling to realize that thought itself, what we prize as most uniquely ours, changes shape as we move through the hours and years? I often ask myself what it would feel like to live entirely attuned to this rhythm, to study when clarity is sharpest, to create when imagination is strongest, to rest when memory is weaving in silence. Would life feel smoother, more fluid, less of a struggle? Or would such surrender feel limiting, as though freedom were lost? Perhaps the truth is in balance, in gently shaping our days while also listening to the tides within. And yet, the modern world often ignores this. Schools demand learning at fixed hours, regardless of when young minds are most open. Work schedules insist on productivity even as afternoon lulls pull us toward rest. We ask creativity to appear on command, though it prefers to wander in at its own time. Isn't it strange that we structure life against the very rhythm that sustains our thoughts? And doesn't it make you wonder how much potential is dulled by this constant mismatch? But despite this, the rhythm endures. Even when we push it aside, it waits, returning as sleepiness, as hunger, as moments of unexpected inspiration. You cannot silence it, only choose whether to notice it. Doesn't that make it less of a chain and more of a companion? One that quietly shapes your days whether or not you acknowledge it. So perhaps the question is not whether you are ruled by the hidden clock, but how you choose to dance with it. Will you stumble, forcing yourself to move when the music slows? Or will you listen, flowing with its rise and fall, finding harmony in the pattern? Could it be that the art of thought itself, memory, creativity, focus, lies not in control but in timing? And as you reflect on your own rhythm, perhaps you'll notice the subtle cues, the ease of a morning-solved problem, the hazy drift of afternoon thoughts, the strange clarity of late-night reflection. These are not accidents, but whispers of the clock, guiding you gently. And maybe, just maybe, listening to them is the first step toward not only clearer thought, but a gentler way of living within time itself. Have you ever wondered why your body sometimes feels stronger at certain times of the day and heavier at others, as if invisible tides were moving through your muscles and bones? Why is it that a jog in the morning feels different from one at sunset, even if the distance is the same? Could it be that strength itself is a creature of time, obeying rhythms hidden deep within you? Picture your heart, that tireless drummer, beating through the hours. It does not play evenly across the day. In the morning, the beat is cautious, steady, as though waking itself. By afternoon, it grows stronger, pumping with confidence. Isn't it fascinating that even this organ, which never rests, still dances to the clock's command? And if the heart keeps rhythm, don't your muscles, your lungs, your very blood follow along like instruments in a symphony? Think of energy like sunlight in a bottle. It glows brightest at certain hours, then dims, then flares again. Have you felt that surge in late afternoon, when your body seems suddenly capable of more? Athletes often find their peak performance in these hours. Jumps higher, strides faster, reflexes quicker. Isn't it strange that your body seems to know when to hold back and when to release its full strength? But then comes the question, what purpose does this pattern serve? Why not give equal power to every moment? Perhaps the answer lies in efficiency. The body, like a wise guardian, allocates energy where it is most needed, conserving here, amplifying there. Isn't it remarkable that even your endurance is rationed by a hidden schedule, ensuring survival long before comfort was ever considered? And what of fatigue? That heaviness that seeps into muscles, slowing every movement. Have you noticed how it comes not just from exertion but from timing? A short walk late at night can feel more exhausting than a long climb in the morning. Could it be that tiredness is less about effort and more about alignment, a sign that your actions and your inner clock have fallen out of step? I sometimes imagine the body as a tidal pool of energy, filling and emptying with predictable rhythm. There are hours when the tide is high, your grip firm, your stride steady. Then there are hours when it withdraws, leaving you fragile, cautious. Do you not feel these tides in yourself, the ebb and flow of strength, even when your tasks remain the same? But strength is not only physical. Consider immunity, the silent shield that guards you from illness. Why does it, too, follow a rhythm? Your defenses rise and fall with the day, some strongest at night, others peaking in daylight. Have you ever wondered why fevers often worsen at night? Why symptoms flare when the world grows quiet? Could it be that even the immune system listens to the hidden drumbeat of time, adjusting its vigilance to the turning of the earth? And then there is healing, the slow mending of wounds, the knitting of tissue. Why does recovery seem faster when rest follows rhythm, slower when it does not? Isn't it humbling that even repair is scheduled, that your body's ability to restore itself waxes and wanes, as if a silent craftsman works best only during certain hours? Consider also temperature, the warmth that rises in your body through the day and cools with the night. This quiet shift influences everything: your strength, your alertness, even your comfort in your own skin. Have you noticed how nights feel cooler not only in the air but within you, as though your body itself prepares for stillness? And then, as dawn approaches, warmth returns, priming you to rise. Isn't it astonishing that your very heat is timed, a flame fanned higher or dimmed lower by the unseen hand of your clock? But what happens when we push against this? Night shifts, late workouts, restless days spent indoors. The body resists, sometimes subtly, sometimes with force. Muscles ache longer, injuries linger, energy scatters. Haven't you felt it, that stubborn protest when you demand strength at the wrong hour? Could it be that the clock inside you is not only a guide but also a protector, preventing harm by making fatigue heavier when effort would be risky? And yet, we live in a world that often ignores this wisdom. Workouts scheduled by convenience rather than rhythm, diets planned without regard to time, sleep sacrificed for deadlines. We treat energy as though it were endless, strength as though it were always available. But isn't the truth quieter, more intricate, that both are bound to cycles, gifts that arrive and fade with timing? Here's a curious thought. If you could see your strength charted across the day, like a graph of rising and falling waves, would you change how you lived? Would you save your hardest efforts for the hours of peak energy and rest when the tide withdrew? Would life feel smoother, more balanced, less like a constant battle with weariness? But perhaps balance is the lesson itself. To know that there are hours meant for action and hours meant for rest, both necessary, both sacred. Doesn't it feel liberating to think that weakness is not failure but timing, that fatigue is not an enemy, but a signal that the pendulum has swung and it is time to pause? I sometimes think of the body as a great orchestra playing across the day. Muscles, hormones, nerves, each with their own part, rising and falling in volume, never constant, always shifting. At some hours the drums beat loud, at others the violins whisper soft. Together they create harmony, but only if you listen. Have you noticed how dissonance arrives when you ignore the music, when you push for strength in the wrong movement, or demand silence when the symphony wants to swell? And then another question arises: if the body is so precisely timed, does that mean free will is an illusion? Or is there freedom in awareness, in choosing when to act, when to rest, when to trust the cycle? Perhaps harmony is not found in denying the rhythm, but in moving with it, like a dancer guided by the music but still free to improvise. Even the breath itself reminds us of this. Have you felt how inhalations feel different in the morning, deeper, fresher, while at night the exhale lengthens, softer, heavier? Could it be that each breath is a clock in miniature, carrying the same rhythm that shapes your days? Doesn't it make you wonder if every moment of life is stitched with time, from heartbeat to stride to thought itself? So strength is not a constant flame but a tide, not a straight line but a wave. It rises, it falls, it returns. To honor it is not to push endlessly but to listen, when to leap, when to pause, when to let the rhythm carry you. And isn't it a comfort, in the end, to know that you are not failing when tiredness comes, nor superior when strength surges? You are simply moving within the great cycle, guided by the hidden clock, no different from the sun rising and setting, the sea swelling and retreating. To live is to join this pattern, to recognize that your power is not yours alone, but a gift of time itself. And perhaps the real question is not how to resist this rhythm, but how to walk with it, to feel its rise, to accept its fall, and to trust that the tide always will return. Have you ever wondered why the night sky feels so different depending on the hour? Midnight carries a certain hush, while 3 in the morning hums with strangeness, and dawn whispers a kind of relief. Why do these small shifts in darkness feel so distinct, even when the world around you is still? Could it be that your hidden clock shapes not only your body but also your perception of time itself, painting hours with moods that no clock on the wall can show? Think of time as a river. To the calendar it looks straight, flowing evenly from one moment to the next. Yet to your mind it meanders, pools, quickens, slows. An hour in joy feels like a blink, while an hour in waiting stretches into eternity. Have you felt this bending of time? How the same 60 minutes can be an instant or a burden? Isn't it curious that your perception of time is not mechanical, but deeply personal, tied to rhythms within you? Why is it that waiting in the dark feels longer than waiting in the light? Could it be that in darkness, when external cues vanish, your body leans more heavily on its inner clock, and that clock ticks differently, stretching the silence? And when the morning comes, doesn't it feel as though time quickens, as though the sun itself winds the gears of your awareness faster? I often ask myself, do we live by 2 clocks at once? One outside, ruled by numbers, and one inside, ruled by rhythm. The outside clock is rigid, indifferent, precise. The inside clock is fluid, mysterious, sometimes obedient, sometimes rebellious. Have you noticed how often they disagree? How often your inner sense of time refuses to match the numbers on the screen? Consider how age alters time. As a child, summers felt endless, each day sprawling wide. Now, as an adult, months slip past in a blur. Why does time seem to accelerate with age? Could it be that as your inner clock gathers more memories, each moment feels smaller in comparison, compressed against the weight of all that came before? Isn't it strange that time is both constant and shifting, measured evenly yet experienced unevenly? And what of dreams, where time loses all structure? In a few minutes of sleep, you may live through entire stories, years passing in the span of an hourglass turned upside down. Doesn't this reveal that your perception of time is elastic, capable of stretching beyond the limits you accept while awake? Could it be that the inner clock, while guiding your body, sometimes steps aside to let the mind wander freely, beyond minutes and hours? Have you felt how memory itself bends time? A moment of nostalgia can pull you backward, collapsing decades into an instant. A sudden anticipation can propel you forward, making tomorrow feel closer than today. Isn't it astonishing that your thoughts can fold time like paper, carrying you anywhere within its span without moving at all? But then another question arises. If perception can warp, what does it mean for reality? Is time as rigid as we believe, or is it partly created by the rhythm within us? Could it be that the hidden clock is not only a guide but a storyteller, weaving hours into experiences rather than mere numbers? Think of how cultures measure time differently. Some divide it into precise hours and minutes, others into tasks, seasons, cycles of the moon. In some traditions, there is less obsession with punctuality and more attention to flow. Have you noticed how being in such an environment alters your own sense of time? How waiting feels lighter, how days feel more continuous? Isn't it possible that time is as much a social rhythm as a biological one? And yet, despite cultural variation, the body insists on its cycles. Hunger comes, sleep calls, energy rises and falls. Even when you lose track of the outer clock, the inner one reminds you of its presence. Isn't it humbling that no matter how you try to redefine time, your biology gently anchors you back to rhythm? I sometimes think of perception of time as weather of the mind. Some days it is calm, hours passing gently, unnoticed. Other days it storms, each moment stretched, lightning strikes of urgency tearing through. Have you felt that? How a task under pressure feels like a downpour, while a joyful moment feels like a clear sky? Could it be that your inner clock interacts with mood, weaving emotion into your sense of passing hours? But what happens when time feels broken? Sleepless nights when minutes crawl, grief when days blur, waiting rooms where the second hand seems cruel. In those moments, isn't it as though the inner clock is no longer in harmony with the outer one, each dragging you in opposite directions? And isn't that discord some of the hardest to endure, because it makes you feel trapped not by the world but by your own perception? And yet, there are also moments when time disappears entirely. Flow, the state when work or play consumes you so fully that hours vanish unnoticed. Have you ever looked up from such a moment and been startled by how much time has passed? Could it be that in flow, the inner clock steps aside, releasing you from its grip, letting you live outside time for a while? Isn't that one of life's rarest freedoms? Then comes the thought, if time bends so easily in perception, is it not as much art as science? We measure it with atomic precision, yet live it in elastic, unpredictable ways. Perhaps the true clock is not the one in the laboratory but the one in your mind, unique and personal. Isn't it extraordinary that every person carries not only their own heartbeat but their own experience of time? No two identical? And here lies a deeper mystery. Why does anticipation stretch time while memory collapses it? Waiting for a loved one to arrive can make minutes feel endless. Yet once they are gone, whole years feel compressed into a single remembered glance. Could it be that the inner clock counts not just seconds but meaning, weighting some moments heavily and letting others dissolve? So I find myself asking, what does it mean to live well in time? Is it to obey the outer clock, punctual and efficient? Or is it to honor the inner one, noticing when hours feel rich and when they feel thin? Perhaps it is both, a dance between the measured and the felt, between the rigid and the fluid. And isn't it comforting to think that while time may seem to race or drag, the rhythm inside you is steady, guiding, weaving the hours into something more than numbers? That though you cannot hold time still, you can live it more deeply by noticing the tides of your own perception. Perhaps the real secret is that time is not simply something that passes. It is something you experience. Each moment shaped by your hidden clock, each hour painted with your attention, each day bent by your rhythm. And maybe that is the quiet wonder, that you are not just carried by time, but also a maker of it, shaping its flow by how you feel, how you wait, how you remember. And isn't that worth holding close, as you sit in the quiet of another passing hour, noticing how your body tells time in ways no watch ever could? Have you ever thought about how your body knows the difference between the changing seasons, even when you don't notice it consciously? Why is it that winter seems to draw you inward, making you slower and quieter, while spring feels like a sudden surge of energy, pulling you outward again? Could it be that your hidden clock is not bound only to the turning of hours and days, but also to the grander cycle of the year? Think of light again, but not just daily sunrise and sunset. The seasons bring long days and short ones, shifting the balance of brightness and shadow. Have you noticed how your mood leans with these shifts? Longer nights making you crave rest, longer days stirring a restless energy? Isn't it striking that even in modern times, with artificial lights burning endlessly, the tilt of the earth still seeps into your skin and bones? Why do animals migrate, hibernate, or shed their coats exactly when they do? They don't own calendars, yet their bodies obey precise schedules. Could it be that humans, too, still carry the same deep seasonal memory? We may not sleep through winter like bears, but haven't you felt the pull to cocoon during cold months, to feast and gather in late autumn, to stretch outward as spring awakens? Isn't it possible that beneath our busy lives, we too are creatures of season? I sometimes imagine the inner clock as not one timepiece but a nested set. Small gears ticking through minutes, larger ones turning through hours, even greater ones shifting through months and years. Doesn't that explain why your energy doesn't only change from morning to night, but from January to July? Could it be that your body is not just a daily clock but also a calendar, carrying the imprint of ancient cycles of harvest and survival? And what about rituals? Festivals, holidays, traditions, they cluster in particular times of year. Do you think that is coincidence? Or is it an echo of biology, collective recognition of rhythm? Harvest festivals in autumn, celebrations of light in the deep of winter, renewal rites in spring. Isn't it fascinating that cultures across the globe, separated by oceans and centuries, shape their calendars to match the body's instinct to honor the turn of seasons? But then another question lingers: how much of this rhythm is choice and how much is compulsion? Do you crave fresh starts in spring because society tells you it is a season of renewal, or because your biology leans toward growth with the returning light? Do you feel heavy in winter because of cold air and dark skies, or because your clock is tuned to conserve energy when the earth withdraws into silence? Perhaps it is both, intertwined, inseparable. Consider also the rhythms of reproduction. Across species, fertility rises and falls with seasons, ensuring young are born in times of plenty. Do humans carry a shadow of this too, subtle but present? Could it be that your clock doesn't only guide sleep and hunger but once guided the continuation of life itself? Isn't it humbling to think that even love and desire may have once moved in sync with the sun's arc and the earth's abundance? And what happens when these rhythms are disrupted? Cities glow with artificial light all year. Climate shifts blur the lines between seasons. Global travel lets us step between summer and winter in a matter of hours. Do you think your body adjusts easily, or do you feel a quiet dissonance, a sense that something ancient has been lost? Could this dissonance explain why seasonal sadness lingers in many? Why fatigue spreads when the calendar no longer matches the body's expectations? I often think of autumn evenings, the way the air smells of endings, the way the sky deepens earlier each night. Have you felt how reflective those hours are, how the body leans toward memory and quiet? Then think of summer mornings, bright, urgent, overflowing with energy. Isn't it remarkable that your very emotions mirror the tilt of the planet, as though you are not separate from Earth but an expression of it? And here's another mystery. Why does time itself feel different depending on the season? A winter night seems longer, heavier, stretched. A summer day flies by in a rush of brightness. Do you think the inner clock counts seconds differently? Or is it your perception, colored by the rhythms of light and dark? Isn't it curious how even time feels seasonal, changing its texture with the year? There is a gentleness in recognizing this. That rest in winter is not laziness, but rhythm. That urgency in spring is not impatience, but renewal. That nostalgia in autumn is not melancholy, but preparation. Could it be that much of our struggle comes from resisting these shifts, trying to stay the same all year when the body longs to move with the earth? But then I ask, if your body is tuned to seasons, what of those who live where seasons blur? Near the equator, where day and night are nearly equal year-round. Or in far northern lands, where the sun barely sets in summer and barely rises in winter. Do their clocks adapt differently? Do they carry unique rhythms, shaped by the extremes of light and dark? Isn't it fascinating that the human experience of time may differ so profoundly depending on the latitude of one's birth? And yet, no matter where, the cycles endure. Even in places of constant light, the body insists on rhythm, carving time out of endless day or night. Even in cities where neon burns at midnight, the body still seeks shadow and dawn. Isn't that proof that the hidden clock is not easily erased, that it belongs to something older and stronger than any invention? Sometimes I imagine life as a great wheel. Each day a spoke, each season a turn, each year a revolution. You are carried along, not by choice but by design, rising with spring, ripening with summer, reflecting in autumn, resting in winter. Doesn't it bring a kind of peace to see yourself not as separate from this wheel but part of its turning? One more pattern in the great design of time? So perhaps the question is not whether you are bound by seasons, but how deeply you are willing to listen to them. Do you allow yourself to rest when winter whispers? Do you let yourself burst forward when spring calls? Or do you resist, insisting on sameness in a world that is never still? And isn't it comforting to think that the hidden clock within you is not only a daily rhythm but a yearly one, guiding you gently through the great cycles of life, just as it has guided countless generations before you? Maybe the secret is not to fight the seasons inside you, but to honor them, to recognize that time is layered, day within day, season within season, life within life. And by noticing this, perhaps you begin to live more fully, more patiently, more in harmony with the wheel that turns both around you and within you. Have you ever paused to ask yourself what it means to live inside a clock that never stops ticking? From the moment of your first breath to the hush of your last, the rhythm continues, guiding every heartbeat, every rise of energy, every fall of sleep. But if the clock shapes so much of who you are, what does it mean for the way you choose to live? Are you simply a passenger in its flow, or can you learn to move with it, almost like a dancer learning to hear the music instead of fighting against it? I often wonder whether freedom lies in breaking from rhythm or in listening to it more closely. Think about how often modern life asks you to ignore the signals of your body. Staying up when tired, working through hunger, forcing focus when your mind drifts. Haven't you felt the cost of this? The fog, the irritability, the heaviness that no caffeine can truly erase. Could it be that we mistake defiance for strength, when real strength may lie in respecting the cycles already inside us? And yet, rhythm is not a cage. It doesn't chain you. It cradles you. Have you noticed how, when you finally surrender to it, going to bed when your body asks, walking outside into morning light, pausing for rest when fatigue arrives, you feel lighter, clearer, more whole? Isn't it possible that harmony with time is not about control but about partnership? A dance where you do not lead but also do not resist. Consider the heart again. It beats without your command, yet it keeps you alive. Breathing, too, an endless rhythm that continues even when you forget it. Do you think these clocks are reminders that not everything must be managed, that some parts of life are meant to carry you if you let them? And if that is true for breath and heartbeat, why not for sleep, hunger, mood, and focus as well? But then the deeper question emerges. If everything is bound to time, what is timeless? Is there any part of you untouched by the rhythm, something that sits outside the clock's ticking? Perhaps it is awareness itself, the part of you that notices the rhythm but is not fully contained by it. Have you ever sat quietly, listening to your own breath, feeling your own pulse, and thought, I am both inside this rhythm and outside it, both participant and witness? Doesn't that suggest that while time moves through you, something in you also watches time? Think of how the body's clock is tuned to the earth, the rising sun, the falling night, the turning of the seasons. You are not separate from the planet, you are synchronized with it. Isn't it astonishing to realize that every cell in you, every cycle, is answering to signals written by the spinning of a world you did not choose to be born upon? And yet, here you are, part of its turning. Doesn't that give life a strange kind of unity, as though you are not just a person in time but a fragment of the Earth's own heartbeat? And what happens when you imagine beyond Earth? The moon, tugging at tides, the stars circling, galaxies wheeling. Do you think your rhythm is only human, or is it a tiny echo of a rhythm that extends through the cosmos itself? Could it be that the hidden clock inside you is one thread in a vast, infinite loom of time, weaving stars and seasons, dreams and days, into a single fabric? But even as the thought expands outward, it also contracts inward. For the same rhythm that carries galaxies also carries your smallest cells. Mitochondria pulsing, neurons firing, hormones rising and falling in waves. Isn't it beautiful that you are both vast and small, cosmic and cellular, held together by the same quiet law of rhythm? Here's another question. If life is so deeply timed, does death itself have rhythm? Heart slow, breath lengthens, the body begins to release. Isn't it haunting but also comforting to think that even endings are part of the pattern, not outside of it? Could it be that the hidden clock doesn't stop suddenly but simply finishes its song, closing with the same elegance it carried all along? And if that is so, then perhaps life is not about fighting the clock but learning to hear it. To notice its cues, its whispers, its invitations. Have you tried this? Closing your eyes at midday and asking your body what it needs? Sometimes the answer is food, sometimes rest, sometimes silence. The clock speaks softly, but it speaks always. Could it be that wisdom lies not in ignoring it, but in learning its language? Think of the way your days are shaped already. You wake, you eat, you move, you rest. Each action a note, each cycle a measure in a song. But how often do you hear the music? How often do you move mechanically through the hours without sensing the beauty of their arrangement? Doesn't it seem that to live fully is to notice the song as it plays, to realize you are not only listening but also part of the melody itself? And here lies a gentle truth. Time will carry you whether or not you notice it. The sun will rise, your heart will beat, sleep will come. You cannot escape it. But isn't it more tender, more meaningful to walk with awareness? To say yes to the rhythm, to let it guide you without fear, to trust that it knows more about balance than you do. So the question becomes, what kind of relationship will you have with time? Will you treat it as an enemy, always racing, always insufficient? Or will you see it as a companion, steady and loyal, holding you from your first breath to your last? Isn't it more peaceful to imagine time not as a thief but as a guide, one who carries you carefully across the bridge of life? Perhaps the final secret is this: you are not ruled by time so much as woven into it. The hidden clock is not a chain but a thread, and through it you are connected to earth, to stars, to every living thing. To resist it is to pull against the fabric. To accept it is to rest in the weave, trusting that you belong. And isn't that a gentle ending? To know that the rhythm inside you is the same rhythm that turns the world, that carries oceans, that lifts and lowers the sun. That you are not apart from time but part of it, moving not against the clock but within its endless, patient song. And maybe, just maybe, the real gift is realizing that this song, though it ends for each of us, never truly stops. The clock ticks on, the rhythm continues, and you, like all who came before and all who will come after, are one note in its eternal music.